Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Helms. I'm a senior solution architect for HCL Technologies, industry software division. Glad to be here with you today. We're going to talk a little bit about leveraging AI to turn customer service into customer success, specifically around AI service optimization platforms and our platform in particular, which is called IntelliService. So let's get on with it. So this is kind of a striking quote. And the amount of data that is being generated year over year is just absolutely astronomical. And when leveraging AI, it's actually using data to do predictive analysis, prescriptive analysis, to basically to improve with platforms day-to-day services, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. But we're going to talk a little bit about the slice of data that is typically generated by a service organization, especially those with products or services that require services after the sale. So here's a little bit of some of those types of data that go into an AI platform or that an AI platform would leverage. And many are generating, but not many people actually continue to use this data. So talking about things like triage data, ticketing data, telemetry data from IoT-based enabled devices, parts repair data, call resolution data. So this is mapping solutions back to the initial problem statement that a customer might be having, and compliance data as well. And so most of this data, like I said, is being generated. It sits there and then it's never really used, because going through this data with any kind of analytical tool or with a pair of human eyes, oh my gosh, so difficult to do. So that's really where AI comes in and really boosts our capability in this area. So one of the top metrics that we're going to talk about is FCR, our first contact resolution. Some folks say first call resolution, but this is really the main key within a service organization, especially those that also have a field service component. So a couple of pretty staggering things here. 80% of service requests eventually result in a scheduled field service call. So that really means, if you flip that on its head, that means that most companies have about a 20% first contact resolution rate, which means that when someone gets on the phone or within chat or even an email exchange, only 20% of the time is that the solution actually identified to that problem. And if you know the problem, then you can identify the solution. So you can almost say only 20% of the time is the problem even identified. There's a pretty also very definitive line around the 80% mark. So organizations that are getting 80% or better are basically having a 6.2% revenue increase, whereas anybody who's doing under that margin or that line is suffering 2%, sometimes even more revenue decrease. So there's a direct correlation to this first contact resolution KPI. And we really kind of use this as a cornerstone to determine, is an AI platform actually working for you? Is it actually doing the right things? So let's dig even a little bit deeper here. So first contact resolution, we talked about it. That's the problem that we're trying to solve here. What are the contributors to this? So resource constraints is a huge contributor. And what I mean by resource constraints is, long hold times, not having enough people to actually meet the need within a call center or even field service agents as well. Tribal knowledge, so the more tenure a staff has, the more stratified that staff becomes. And the higher echelons of that staff has tribal knowledge that they typically have built up just by doing their job, no fault of theirs, but it's hard to disseminate that knowledge because this is a fast-paced environment. And in a lot of cases, instead of distributing the knowledge, it basically just results in an escalation to the people who know. So the tribal knowledge that they have stays their own. High agent turnover also contributes to this stratification within an organization, within a service organization, where you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and you have this turnover. Not a lot of people will stay in a service organization. They're moving on to other areas of IT potentially. So because you have this constant influx of new folks that can only handle, level 1 calls because they're only minimally trained, you end up kind of propagating that issue with the stratification, and further propagating tribal knowledge. And of course, then you have resource constraints because you may only have a couple, 3, 4, 10, maybe top tier agents that end up with all the difficult tickets. And hey, let's face it, if we're only doing a 20% first contact resolution, a lot of tickets are making it to that top tier level. So those guys get backed up. And then finally, all of that results in poor customer experience, long hold times or wait times, or long resolution times, right? Especially if your top tier agents have to actually call them back at a later time, or deal with that problem at a later time because they've got a stack of tickets that they've got to deal with that are all complex and therefore take more time in the first place. So you can see how this problem just compounds itself, with every thing that we've described here. So let's talk a little bit about HCL IntelliService. And what real AI-based service optimization platform really involves. So high expectation of aligning customer service and profits. That's an absolute must in an AI-based service optimization platform. Now, you might have expected me to start with something really techy or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that there is AI platforms are expensive, right? By default, they're expensive. They're tough to implement. They take a long while to learn, and therefore the ROI is not always realized right away. So whatever improvements you start seeing might actually be negatively impacted by the fact that you've made this huge investment. So the actual implementation, the pricing, quite honestly, to be frank, has to align, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So improving customer self-service, I mean, that's really the ultimate goal here. The other big stat that we always go by is CSAT, or customer satisfaction scoring. And I tell you, the longer a customer has to wait on hold, or if you don't make that FCR the first time and you have to send out a field service agent to do a diagnosis of a problem, and then they have to go out and a second or third time because you had to wait on a part order and the customer's sitting there without their component or whatever their device is, they're going to be unhappy, and that's really the bottom line. There's also a goal here to reduce knowledge gaps. That goes back to the tribal knowledge that we talked about in terms of disseminating that knowledge and reducing the overall knowledge gaps between tiers of service personnel, and also talk about the employees that are kind of keeping that tribal knowledge. If you look to the field service side, it's even worse, because these guys are the guys that are going out, and gals that go out to repair these manufactured goods, right? These durable goods, and they've got their hands in it, and they know what they're doing, and they document it and everything else. A lot of that documentation just never makes it back to the service side, to the folks that are talking to the customer and trying to identify the problem up front. So those boundaries just stay up. Improving workforce performance, that's a big deal. You got to be able to measure how the platform is actually helping workflow performance and workforce performance. So that's a big deal. And of course, it has to adapt to growing business use cases. You can implement a system like this, and maybe you start achieving really good FCR, really good CSAT scores, really good MTTR, or mean time to resolution. But then who's to say that stays there a year down the road or 2 years down the road, right? New products are released. Knowledge has to be able to be pulled into the system organically through just doing their jobs and releasing these products and pulling that documentation in. And so if you don't have a platform that's going to do that, it's going to get stale really quick. And all of that upfront work that goes into implementing it just goes out the window. So this is really kind of the what. Let's take a look quickly at the how. So in terms of aligning customer service and profits, a value-based success model, a model that actually basically, for all intents and purposes, says that if we are not bringing you efficiency, we're not making money, we're not taking money. And that's a pretty interesting and innovative way to look at an AI platform, because most AI platforms just have a big price tag that's enterprise wide, and you're paying six figures, seven figures to get that value, which is very incrementally realized. Improving customers self-service. Conversational AIs are great for this. Sometimes conversational AIs get a bad rap. uh, People don't like talking to chatbots in a lot of cases because they feel like they're not kind of keeping up, and they get frustrated with the things that they can say. A really good conversational AI within a platform like this is actually able to do unscripted conversations. Most conversational AIs that are out nowadays, you have to know and anticipate what the customer is going to say in order to react. Otherwise, you get those lovely responses of, "Well, I'm still learning, and I don't know how to understand you or how to deal with what you said at this time. Is there something else I can help you with?" And that's why people get frustrated. So you got to have a really good advanced conversational AI. And if you do, then the customer self-service, you can get call deflections upwards of 20 to 35%. Now that's what we have seen with our platform. So in terms of reducing knowledge gaps, and intelligent guidance and cognitive search, we're talking about an AI that takes all of that background data, all the data that we talked about in that second slide, pulls it all in, and maps between symptom and result, and with the root cause in the middle, and then can ask questions in order to align those things together, and basically provide a guided questionnaire to your level 1 agent so they can perform as effectively as your level 3 agents, with the same type of problem. Now, how's that for flattening out the stratification within a service organization? That's pretty exciting. In terms of improving workforce performance, augmented analytics is the way to go. And we're talking about deep augmented analytics, double clicking down into how calls are answered, what data was given to given to that agent for them to solve the problem, how they navigated it. All of that is really, really good information, both at the executive level and the mid-level managerial level as well. And then in terms of the agent themselves, being able to self-evaluate and provide that feedback to them on the fly, huge, huge component of this type of system. And then finally, in terms of adapting, workflow automation and continuous learning. So the ability, and I think I kind of alluded to this when I was talking about the adapting point at the beginning, was for the system to be able to pull things in organically, and to also be able to learn from conversations that are happening between agents and an end user, being able to take those reports that are happening after the field service repair is done, pull that back in, tie that back into the overall brain trust within the AI, so it can then better provide through that intelligent guidance and cognitive search solutions for the agents to achieve FCR up front. So this is very cyclic in nature. So this is kind of a high-level map of HCL IntelliService, kind of the fact that we kind of sit in the middle between the remote agents, between the customers, the on-site technicians, and kind of the stack that we use here too. So we're multi-cloud. We're also on premises and also private cloud. So that's also really unique, because for very highly regulated industries that have to have things on premise, government agencies, things like that, we can definitely do that. Everything is containerized, encapsulated, and can go right on premise for you. You can also do multi-cloud, AWS, Azure, doesn't matter. And then of course, if you got a private cloud implementation as well, we can deploy there. We also connect to just about anything that has an API. So any enterprise systems, knowledge repositories, as well as logs and alerts, CRM systems, backend ERP systems that have your bill of materials for manufactured products, ServiceMax, ServiceNow, Salesforce, pretty much anything out there that has an API, we can connect and pull that data into our data lake in order to supply that very foundational piece of data for the AI platform. So right now, without an AI service-based platform, an agent's life kind of looks like this. They're using their ticketing, their CRM system. And tell me if this kind of looks familiar to you. They go from ticket creation to ticket assignment. They do some, remote work. They go through and try to do the problem solution and then capture whatever whatever they derive, and then whatever kind of reporting they have to do, and then this whole thing kind of begins again, and it's very cyclic. So one thing I wanted to mention is that if they're achieving a 20% FCR, and they're constantly using these ticketing systems and documenting and doing the reporting within those ticketing systems, guess what? They're locking themselves within that 20% FCR. They're never being able to break out of it, unless someone goes and tries to find other information elsewhere on their own. It's just a closed loop system, and it very rarely improves. So same thing with the technician. So these are the folks that are out there doing the service, right? They go from work order to the visit to some diagnosis. Maybe they're able to do some parts, and if they have it on the truck after they do a diagnosis, possibly have to schedule another visit if they don't have it. Guess what? This thing can do 2 times, maybe 3 times, multiple visits, and there's nothing that jacks up the per incident cost of a customer problem than multiple truck rolls. This is really, really big, really, really big. This is where the FCR really shines if you're achieving that high number, because you can identify the problem. And even if it does require a technician to go out and fix it, you can have the part on that truck. You can have a well-known time period that it's going to take to fix it in, so the schedule is not negatively impacted, and that truck and that technician can go out and service 3 or 4 more people, and you have a very prescribed schedule, right? Whereas if they're going out and they're doing, diagnosis of the problem, who knows how long it might take? They might have to reschedule the second appointment. Everything gets pushed back. Guess what? That negatively affects CSAT scores, and so the circle continues, right? And then finally, we didn't talk a whole lot about this, but a lot of that field service is done through contractors, and when they're done, they're coming back. If they're servicing, manufacturers' warranties, they're coming back and they're submitting warranty claims. Those warranty claims come in back to the manufacturer, and those agents have to put eyeballs on those warranty claims to both approve them, make sure they're not out of bounds in terms of dates, times, dollars, parts that they use to do the repair, so on and so forth, in order to approve the claim and actually pay back out to the contractor what they're due. But in a lot of cases, there's very little kind of categorical data like a part that they can use to auto classify. So they, in a case where they're going out and they're doing a repair and they're not necessarily doing a replacement part, all they have to go on is a description. And that's again where natural language processing, which is a segment of AI, can come in, analyze those things, and be able to make a good recommendation on the warranty agent as to whether or not to approve that, and also how to categorize it so it could be used later. So that's a pretty big deal. So this kind of gives a picture of that: claim assignment, claim adjudication, and audit. So that's really kind of making a decision as to whether or not it's valid. Doing the claim authorization, processing the payments and returns, and then finally doing that resolution coding I was talking about. And again, this process kind of goes around and around. In most of the manufacturers that we've dealt with and customers that we've dealt with, this again is a closed loop process. These people that are doing this, they don't have connections with or talk to or use the same data platforms as your service agents up front. This is where some of the richest data is actually at, and being able to pull this data in organically enhances all of the other processes. And so let's take a look at that real quick. So this is kind of the ideal. I'm not going to go through all these boxes. This is a little bit of a busy slide, so kind of take a minute and scan around. But what I will go over is the fact that those dark blue boxes at the top, the remote customer engagement, enhanced field service experience, and connected customer success, those are generally customer benefits that they're getting out of a product like this, okay? And you can see those little map markers along the road, some examples of these things like, pre-identify parts for service accuracy and first contact resolutions, right? That's making sure that they have that part on the truck, or insights for product enhancement. All of that comes in after the fact of the predictive and prescriptive analysis on all the work that has been done, so it can be put back into making a better product. The light blue boxes on the bottom, intelligent triage and so forth, those are benefits back to the business, okay? So the intelligent triage capability is huge, because again, that elevates your agents that might not be as senior as your level 3 folks. Modernize operations, Oh, here's the big one, warranty cost control, right? That ultimately has a major financial impact back on the business and back on whether or not products can be overall improved. Because when manufacturer releases a product, a warranty is a cost center. That cost center and that expected cost has to be built into the price of the product, which drives that price up. So this basically kind of alleviates that a little bit and helps be able to give the manufacturer leeway to either bring the cost of their product down or have a bigger margin on that product. So some of the businesses that we've seen adopt this have these kind of problems on the left hand side. A lot of them are really common. Um, Heterogeneous knowledge systems, where it's just data's everywhere and it's hard to manage. High MTTRs to repair and resolve, and that's a big one. That really is a systemic kind of KPI. That if you look at that and you've got high MTTRs, that just it affects everything all the way down the board. Frequent customer escalations, again, as a result of the other things that we talked about earlier on. And then unproductive field visits. So going out there doing the diagnosis, do you know that only 50% of the time when a field agent actually visits, do they actually have the part that if they do get the diagnosis correct the first time around, let's say they've seen that particular model of whatever it is before, and they know a little bit about it, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can diagnose this, but gee, I don't have the part on my truck. So, hey, Mr. Customer, sorry, it's gonna take 6 weeks to get that part in. Let's make another visit that's 6 weeks out, and meanwhile, Mr. Customer doesn't have their whatever it may be, refrigerator, appliance, or in the case of commercial, their HVAC systems down, their fire suppression systems down, whatever it may be, right? So that's a big deal. But here's the cool thing: if you take a look at that KPI screen and that dashboard on the right, that's an actual dashboard taken from one of our customers. And you can see the MTTR line graph on the bottom, and you can kind of see where that mouse pointer is. That was the point of implementation of our product at this particular customer. It took a slight rise during the learning curve, and then it dropped through the floor. Dropped through the floor. Now their MTTR is sitting at about 32 and a half minutes or so, which is pretty phenomenal for their type of product that they manufacture. So this is real value, guys. This is real value. And it's not just for manufacturing. Manufacturing does see 50% reduction in knowledge article access time, along with all these other kind of benefits. They're typically the ones who have really benefit from this the most. But also high tech. Look at that number: 45% reduction in ticket resolution times. And telecom, financial services, even. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It can be a service. It can be a vacation rental, right? Where you've got something like a VRBO or something along those lines, and customers, going out and going to be, leveraging that property, and they have problems, with getting in, or with the facilities, or something gets broken. These all result in service calls, right? Same kind of thing. So to kind of recap a little bit, I wanted to go over these 5 things one more time again for you guys, and make sure that if you're evaluating a product out there, that these 5 elements are within that product, and that they're well implemented, and that there's some customer data behind it, and some usage data behind it that can be proven. So augmented analytics, again, big, huge one. And I mentioned agent analytics, but this is analytics across the whole platform. So analytics on how much data is coming in, how many resolutions and connections are being made between symptoms and root causes and all that, how well the conversational AI is understanding the client and being able to respond to them, and how many potential first call resolutions or first contact resolutions in that case, that the bot is actually able to achieve, which results in call deflection. And then the value-based success model, right? And that's a big one in terms of investment. We like to say that we provide ROI day one instead of one day. Kind of a catchy phrase, but if you can achieve that, that's a pretty amazing statement. And then the continuous learning is huge, as well as the intelligent guidance and cognitive search. So to learn more about AI-based service optimization platforms and specifically about HCL IntelliService, please feel free to reach out via email at ask.intelliservice@hcl.com to schedule a free business value assessment. And chances are I might be involved with that. So as I'm the primary global solutions architect for this product. So I hope to talk to you, and thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful day.